Despite everything that humans have been through, whether it be cataclysmic events or world-ending plagues, we have pulled through and survived time and time again. Despite the setbacks and close calls, humanity has been able to push the boundaries of impossibility beyond their limits. We have gone from clacking stones against stones to create fire, to sending man to the moon. The sky is the limit, and the only thing stopping us is ourselves. If we are not afraid of the unknown, then we shall venture out and conquer it. But that's just it. We are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid that hiding in the trees, somewhere outside our homes, lurks creatures and beings beyond our comprehension. Though we know monsters don't exist, we still have this fear of them, and it all relates back to our primal fears. I promise I'll get to the fears of Fathom analysis in just a moment, but I want to first explain what primal fear is. In short, it is a fear developed by ancient humans that helped keep us alive and allowed us to develop into the species that we are today. In psychology, there are only 5 primal fears that each normal human experiences, and these 5 are extinction, loss of autonomy, mutilation, abandonment, and ego death. Extinction, mutilation, and abandonment are ones you already know, so I won't explain them in detail. Extinction is death, mutilation is fear of losing a part of your body, and abandonment is abandonment. Now, loss of autonomy is one you may not know of. Loss of autonomy is the fear of being controlled by circumstances beyond our control, like being paralyzed, imprisoned, or smothered. Then there is ego death. Ego death is the fear of being shunned, humiliated, or exiled from society. Ego death basically kept humans together to form tribes because, strength in numbers. We were more likely to survive standing side by side than if we were on our own. Anyway, now that you know all the primal fears, it's time to look at one of the most impactful short horror game experiences out there. Fears to Fathom. This game, as of recording, has 4 chapters, and each chapter is a different scenario. Chapter 3 is about being stalked while you're house sitting, and Chapter 4 is about stumbling upon a cult in the woods while you are at work. I won't be analyzing those chapters though, because while I technically could connect a primal fear to them, I would really be stretching the line, so I won't. In this video, we'll only be taking a look at the first and second chapter. Also, before we begin, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you already know what happens in both chapters, because it would take too long to explain in detail what happens in each one. This video is an analysis, not a summary. Past video of mine. Alright, so let's start off with Chapter 1, Home Alone. I think we all remember either watching or playing this, because, at least for me, it certainly left me feeling pretty spooked. Primal fears aside, I think this chapter did so well because of the fact that we all have gotten over anxious at some point and have imagined the scenario exactly what happens here. Excluding the part where we eat a whole pan of lasagna, I still have no clue how our character did that. Freak of nature is what he is. Anyway, a man breaking into your house, that's not really a unique game idea, and doesn't really connect with any of the primal fears. However, where this chapter shines is in how it sets up the setting. You slowly learn that someone is stalking you outside your house, as evident by the photos your mom sends you, along with the creepy doorbell scene. But if you had a keen eye, then you noticed that while you were shoveling lasagna down your throat, someone was walking up your stairs. After this scene is where Fears to Fathom invokes one of your primal fears, and that primal fear is abandonment. Now, how exactly does a home invasion invoke abandonment? Well, in this scenario, we play as a 14-year-old kid whose mom and dad left him home alone. Not only that, at the beginning of the game, through text messages, we learned that we were originally going to have some friends over, but they then canceled and left us to dry. Hopefully you're starting to see what I'm talking about. To our character, he was betrayed by his parents and friends. When he needed them the most, they weren't there. Nobody could have predicted what was going to happen, yeah. However, trauma is never black and white. Why do you think some people go to therapy to figure out the roots of some of their fears? A lot of the time, it stems from something like this. A traumatic event like a home invasion happened while they were by themselves, and now they can't stand to be alone. They always have to be close to someone, or else they start to panic and freak out. And that's what this chapter does to this poor character. It puts an innocent kid into a horrific situation when no one else was around. And humanity's primal fear of abandonment will forever be invoked in this person. Now that we've discussed the first chapter, before moving on to the next one, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Raid Shadow. Nah, I'm just f***ing with you, screw that. I'd only ever take a sponsorship if I myself enjoyed the product. I'm just trying to lighten the mood before the next chapter because, believe me, it gets dark. Anyway, actually moving on to the second chapter now, Norwood Hitchhike. The second chapter, unlike the first one, has a much darker premises about it. However, not everyone might have realized this during their playthrough of the game. Obviously, we all know that in this chapter, we were out on a drive when our car broke down, and we hitchhiked to a motel with a dude we met at the gas station at the beginning of the game. When we get to the motel, weird things happen. You get a funky coffee from a vending machine, you quickly fall asleep, you wake up to the phone ringing, and the manager knocks on your door and tells you to stop being so loud. Then he gives you pills to snap out of your hangover, and you go back to your room. You realize you're being stalked, someone takes a photo of you through the window, they try to get you to open the door, but you hide in the closet. They manage to break in, but the hotel manager saves you. The end, chapter over, 10 out of 10. A lot of people remember this episode for being exactly how I've just described it, give or take a few added or missing details. However, what some people may have missed, like myself, was a key part of the story that wasn't directly stated in the game. Perhaps I missed it out of ignorance, or perhaps I missed it because I just wasn't paying close enough attention at the time. I am talking about the part of the story where you drink the coffee from the vending machine. When you drink it, you start tripping and feel drowsy. The coffee you just drank was laced with a drug. That part is obvious. However, what might not have been so obvious was what happens after you return to your room and pass out. First off, the reason why you even wake up is because of the landline next to you, it begins to ring. But at the beginning of the game, you were told that the phone didn't work. That is red flag number 1. Then when you open your eyes, in the far right of the room, inside of a closet, you can barely make out someone hiding, shutting the closet door just as you wake. Perhaps they were stalking you? Perhaps they had just gotten into the room and the phone ringing scared them, which made them hide? No. That is not what happened, because a few moments after the supposedly dead phone rang, the manager knocks on your door. When you answer, he complains about you being loud. He then asks why you were making such goofy sounds. This question is what finally gives us a concrete answer to what just happened a few moments prior. Again, I don't know how I missed it the first time when I saw this chapter, but I did. Regardless, the truth is revealed here. The coffee was drugged by a man at the motel. He intentionally drugged that coffee specifically for you, and once he saw you drink it, he knew it was only a matter of time. So, when you were asleep in your room, sedated by the laced coffee, he snuck into your room and he had his way with you. He did unspeakable things to you while you were sedated, things that no human should ever even consider doing. He took advantage of you. He drugged you. He paralyzed you. He abused you in the worst ways possible. And that's how this chapter invokes one of your most primal fears. Loss of autonomy. The fear of being immobilized. The fear of being restricted. The fear of being controlled by something that you yourself cannot control. And this chapter, this scene, this depraved man triggered this fear by doing one of the most despicable things that a person can do. He violated this young woman. And while this chapter did invoke one of humanity's most primal fears, It also invoked the fear that a lot of people, mainly women, experience across the world. This scene isn't exaggerating what happens out there, and that's the cherry on top. That's what makes it that little bit more horrifying. Things such as this happen everywhere, all the time, and because of that active fear that lives in all of us, we become that much more terrified while playing this. And then having to hide in a closet from your violator while he tries to find you, and trying not to make a single sound, proves exactly how much we are afraid of loss of autonomy. It is life or death to us, because if our fear comes true, then it means it's the end for us. So now, we've reached the final part of this video. We've analyzed the first 2 episodes, examining what exactly happens in each episode that invokes the primal fear that lives deep inside of us. And though you can probably already infer, these primal fears are what allows Fears to Fathom to be such a terrifying game. It invokes terror, fear. It preys upon your deepest fears and manipulates them in such a way that causes you to genuinely panic while playing the game. The first episode was the one that I believe spooked me the most. The fact that you knew someone was in your house is what terrified me, because you knew that you also couldn't leave because someone else was outside waiting for you. Those people were manipulating every factor, trying to get you to come out so they could capture you. And I think I relate to it so much because I used to have terrible night terrors whenever I was little. They were bad enough to the point where I used to get hurt when I had them, but that's a story for another day. For now, we must move on, and appreciate how good of a horror game Fears to Fathom is. A game that uses humanity's primal fears to invoke terror is a genius idea, and the creator will forever be remembered for that. And with that being said, thank you for watching. If you have any stories that you would like to share to either of the episodes discussed, then please share them in the comments below. While I may not respond to each one, do know that I see them, and I do read each and every one. Anyway, stay safe out there, and I'll catch you on the flip side.